Ave Legion and welcome to my channel. My name is Ludi and today we'll be doing our EU4 1.30 starting moves guide for Serbia. In this guide we'll be discussing the estates and economy, the diplomacy and war preparations, your missions and early wars, as well as the later expansion and the ideas that you should go for. Before we start the video, I'd appreciate it if you guys left a like, commented, and subscribed, as well as left the bell button on so that you can get notified whenever I release new guides. If we can get this video to 1,000 likes, then I am going to do a giveaway for an EU4 DLC or the base game if you don't have it. One achievement particular to the Serbians is going to be Lazarus, where as Serbia you need to own the entirety of the Balkans as core provinces. When discussing the estates, the first thing you want to do is summon the Diet and go for whichever agenda best suits you, followed up by seizure of land. That's going to give you an extra 5% crownlands. Now you have an actual mission here that requires that you have 40% crownlands, and that's going to give you a permanent claim on Albania and Macedonia. So in 1449 remember to get another 5% crownlands to finish off that mission. The privileges that we'll be giving over to the nobility are the right of council, the supremacy over the crown, and the monopoly on livestock. For the clergy, we'll be giving the clerical ministers oversight by the clergy and expansionist zealotry that offers us +5 morale of armies when fighting heretics or heathens, and we are basically surrounded by heretics or heathens. For the burghers, we're gonna be giving just the free enterprises, and we also have a gold mine in Kosovo. It is a 3 development for production gold mine, and we want to dev it up a bit. We're gonna set up the encourage development edict before we start deving it up, and we're gonna use our initial diplo points here to dev it up once. This is gonna give us an extra 0.66 gold, and usually it gives around 0.66 gold per development. I highly recommend that your initial diplomatic points should go in the Kosovo gold mine. Try and get it up to about 10 production development. That should be optimal. If you go over 10, there's a high amount chance that it's gonna get depleted, and that means it's gonna go back to 3 dev. So I recommend maximum keep it up to 10. Don't worry about falling behind in Diplotech. This is way more important as we need the gold from Kosovo to fuel our initial expansion. You also start off with 2 merchants. One of them is transferring trade from the Constantinople trade node, and the other one is not doing anything. So we're gonna set him up to collect trade from our home Ragusan trade node here. This is gonna give us a 10% boost to this trade node, so it means we're gonna get a slight bit more income from Ragusa. Your starting leader and his heir are pretty trash. I recommend making them both a general, and hopefully with a bit of luck your heir is actually gonna die. The advisors that you should go for include a morale of armies or a discipline advisor if you have one available for your military, and for your diplo either a trade efficiency or, if available, a diplo reputation would be a lot better, to be fair. For admin, do not go for one right now as we don't want to go on the minus with our economy just yet. When choosing your initial rivals, I recommend that you rival up the Herzegovinans and Bosnians, as well as the either Albanians or Hungarians. If it happens that Hungary rivaled you from the very start, then you should rival them back, but if they did not rival you from the start, then do not do that and try and get an alliance with them, as if we have an alliance in 100 relations, then you can do your mission here, which is going to give you the southern part here where you have some cores on for free. Alliance wise, 99% of the time you're only going to be able to ally the Byzantines as well as Bosnia and Herzegovina, but we rivaled them, so we're not going to be able to do that as this is going to be our initial expansion path. Wallachia is quite easy to ally also. We just need to improve relations with them a slight bit in the first couple of months, and also Milan is surprisingly easy to ally them, and they have 2 cores on Venice which they want to get back. So in our war against the Venetians, which is going to be pretty early on in the game, they're going to come in very handy. So I recommend that you start improving relations with the Milanese as soon as you can in the early game. I also recommend improving relations with Austria after you've finished improving relations with the Milanese and got an alliance with them, as we want to join the empire, and in order to join the empire we need to have 124 relations with the Austrians, and we need to have a connection between our capital and the empire, which means that we're going to have to take the Dalmatian holdings from the Venetians in our war against them. If you are lucky and the Hungarians did not rival you, start improving relations with them, as you want to get them on your side and you want to get these provinces for free without having to go to war for them. I also recommend getting your first claim on the Bosnians as soon as you can. Don't forget to also hire the free company in Raska and move your troops by the border with the Bosnians. The Serbians actually got a mission tree in the 1.30 update, and it is a really good mission tree. I mean, it is quite nice flavor. However, I do have a few things I am not happy with. The first one is that if you don't happen to have an alliance with the Hungarians as your second mission after you finish the Moravian arms, then it basically blocks out the rest of the mission tree. You cannot go down this this whole line here, and you cannot finish off encroach on the Germans, which gives you until the end of the game stability cost -15 and max promoted cultures +1. It is quite disappointing, as a lot of the times the Hungarians do rival you, and unless you are willing to restart until they're friendly towards you, this mission is going to be quite hard and tough to deal with. On the left hand side of the mission tree, we have some easy missions at the start, such as getting loyalty with all 3 of the estates. That's going to give you some stability and prestige. Later on, once you have 20 development growth and at least a workshop or accounting house, you're going to get some dev cost in Serbia and production efficiency. And once you have a university, you can get some tech cost and idea cost -10. So if you time this perfectly, then you can get a lot of ideas for a lot cheaper than you would normally. The right hand side basically asks you to commission any icon, then that's going to give you missionary strength and tolerance of true faith. Once you have 75 patriarchal authority, it's going to give you 10% loyalty equilibrium for a few years, and guardians of Saint Sava, which requires that you become defender of the faith, gives you 200 military points. The center part of the mission tree basically revolves around your initial expansion and how to deal with your neighbors. Once you tame the magnates by having 40% crown lands, you get a permanent claim on Macedonia and Albania. Taking Macedonia gives you a permanent claim on North Greece and South Greece, or Mare, and taking those parts is going to give you more claims on Bulgaria and Silistria. Once you have that, you can get claims on Thrace itself and go over taking Constantinople, which is going to give the 3rd Rome event and 1 stability and 50 prestige. This is going to change your capital to Constantinople, and it's going to rename it to the Serbian version. Having the Albanian lands is going to give you a permanent claim on Dalmatia, and having that is going to give you claims on Bosnia, later on Croatia, Slavonia, and on the Carniola region that belongs to the Austrians towards the end. If you do get good relations with the Hungarians and you get your Serbian lands back for free, then you can get until the end of the game 25 defensiveness in Belgrade, and eventually 2 mercantilism and another trade efficiency and merchant for 15 years. Overall, the mission tree is pretty good and it gives quite a few claims, but a lot of these don't really make much sense, as I am going to be expanding into Bosnia from the very start, as well as the Dalmatian lands, and if I was to follow the mission tree here, getting those lands is going to come way later than it normally should be coming in. Still, however, I am not picky, and I'm just really happy that the Serbians do have a bit of flavor in 1.30. Having improved relations with Milan means that we managed to get our alliance with them, and by improving relations more with the Wallachians, we're going to get that also. Now, a lot of the times you are going to be thinking about getting an alliance with the Byzantines. They are desperate for any alliances, and if you do get an alliance with them, it can be beneficial. However, the Byzantines are going to get claimed and attacked by the Ottomans very early on in the game, and I personally think it's not worth getting involved in that war until you get a little bit stronger and you manage to deal with your starting situation and you got a few more lands from the Bosnians and your neighbors here. If it does happen, however, that the Epirites are allied to Bosnia, which I am going to attack right now, I recommend that you co-belligerate them, and if you can take some lands from Epirus, try and vassalize them if you can, as we can use them to release the Byzantines after they've been conquered and feed them back their cores. It is a lot wiser to just take a few lands from them and release them later than actually allying and helping the Byzantines, as that's going to be a death sentence for us. Don't forget to keep improving the gold mine in Kosovo. We are also ready to attack the Bosnians, and apparently the Epirites are not going to be joining into our war because they are basically sieged down by the Byzantines. So we're just going to have an easy war against the Bosnians. Shouldn't be any issues dealing with Bosnia. They basically have fewer troops than us and they're an easy kill. I would just carpet siege them quickly before they actually get attacked by anybody else, as sometimes other nations such as Hungary wants to take advantage of this, or even Herzegovina, and they might attack them also. Bosnia does have cores on both Hum as well as Herzegovina, so if you vassalize them, you can feed them back the cores, but they are quite sizable considering that we ourselves are not very big, so I highly recommend that you just fully annex them. It's going to cost you a bit more of your admin points to core everything, but it's going to be a lot easier in the long run, and you don't need to worry about a rebellious vassal at any point. I also recommend that you start recruiting a couple more units, even though you're going a bit over your force limit. Also, around this time, if you manage to get the claims on Herzegovina, you should attack them and get your land from them. It does happen a lot of the times, unfortunately, that the Wallachians rival you, and if that happens, it is not an issue. We can deal with them. We will have to be in a protracted war with them, so before we do anything, I recommend that you wait until you can get your alliance with the Hungarians. You should be quite close to it if you started improving relations from day one. The reason I recommend that you go over your force limit and you recruit a few more units is because a lot of the times the Hungarians do not ally you simply because you don't have a strong enough army. So if you get a strong enough army, you can ally the Hungarians, and this way you can do your second mission here, and that's going to give you over the province of Belgrade itself. which means you can do the third mission also. That's going to give you 100 military points. And next up, we just have to deal with the Herzegovinans and the Ragusans here. We even managed to do our mission here since it was basically to get Belgrade. We do still have one corps on the Hungarian lands that we want, but we'll deal with that later on. Do attack the Herzegovinans, and if you need to, you can also co-belligerate the Wallachians, but if they are guaranteed by the Ottomans, do not co-belligerate them. You don't want to be in a war against the Ottomans right now. So just take out the Herzegovinans as fast as you can, and once the Wallachians arrive, they will have to stop in one of your forts here, and you can just wipe them out whenever they are sieging it. Wiping out the Herzegovinian army should be a cakewalk, basically. After we finish sieging down Herzegovina, we should go ahead and attack the Wallachians and take them out. Ragusa, a lot of the times, does take advantage and attack Herzegovina also. If they do that, then I recommend that you vassalize Herzegovina so that we can be in a defensive war against the Ragusans. This means that we don't need to fight off their allies Albania or their trade league or the Ottomans, which are guaranteeing them. Fight off the Romanians and your forts here, and that should be easy to win. You will have some Catholic provinces from the Bosnians as well as the Herzegovinans, so what I recommend you do is start converting these provinces, and you should set the Enforced Religious Unity Edict so that it's faster, and you can even give out the Enforced Unity of Faith Edict. Once you have the forts in Wallachia, you can piece them out. I recommend going for the cash as well as war reparations, transfer trade power, and if they have rivaled you, try and get them to cancel the rivalry they have on you, piece them out. And if we still have this situation where the Ragusans attacked Herzegovina, this doesn't always happen, so keep that in mind. If it does happen, vassalize the Herzegovinans so that we are in a war against the Ragusa. Remember to also cancel their rivals. And now that we are in the war, which is a defensive war against the Ragusans, we can basically annex Ragusa as a freebie. We even can call in the Hungarians and the Milanese should we wish to, as it is a defensive war. However, it is really not required. Taking out the Ragusan army should be quite easy, as they have around 6,000 units compared to your probably 15 to 16,000. You should also be one of the first nations to get military tech 4 and go for that, as you definitely will need it. Remember to just send your mercenary unit here to siege down Ragusa, as they have their own manpower pool and we don't need to worry about losing our actual manpower pool. After you do convert all the Catholic provinces, as I mentioned before, you're gonna get rid of the privilege without having to lose any loyalty with that estate. I actually recommend that you fully annex Ragusa, as we want to have some access to the sea, and it is also going to boost up our economy quite a bit since it is a strong province overall. You should also be able to get some new rivals, and I recommend that you definitely go for the Ottomans. If you have all of these lands, you should be able to rival them, and that's going to improve your relations with a lot of their enemies, including your allies, the Hungarians. Another almost mandatory rival is going to be the Venetians, as we will be expanding into their land soon. Remember to embargo your rivals to get a bit more power projection, especially the Ottomans is really good to embargo, and of course the Venetians. Having Ragusa as well as Herzegovina as a vassal means that you should have around 16,000 land force limit around this time. Also send an insult to whichever of your rivals you cannot attack or you do not plan on attacking anytime soon. That is going to increase your power projection also, and if you have 50 power projection, as you know, you get +1 of each mana point per month. After securing your initial lands here, you really want to attack either Venice or the Ottomans, depending on your situation. So a lot of the times I notice the Ottomans will warn you, so if you go to war with the Venetians, you're still gonna have to fight the Ottomans. So if that is the case, then I actually prefer to just take the fight to the Ottomans themselves. Set your war goal for the reconquest of some of these provinces here. You do have 2 cores on Ohri and Uskup, and you're also going to be getting some claims from taming the magnates. That's giving you permanent claims on Macedonia and Albania. You should also be quite okay financially. By now you should have your Kosovo mine at 10, which is going to give you around 6.5 gold per month. As such, we are definitely a-okay financially, and we can get some mercenary units. But before we even get the mercenary units, if the Byzantines as well as the Hungarians are still alive, then you definitely can call on them to help you out against the Ottomans. So I'd recommend calling both of these allies and sticking as close together as you can to them. This war is not going to be easy, but at the same time, it's not going to be that hard, not as hard as most people think. And if you don't feel too confident about it, you do have the economy to hire a lot more mercenary units, so you can go ahead and hire at least 2 or 3 more mercenary units. Try and go for those units that actually have some nice siege pips. For example, the Novgorod company here. I'm actually going to hire the Levant company, which has a good siege pip, and I'm going to attach them to my free company. Remember that you did promise land to both of your allies here, so you want to make sure that you keep true true to your promises. Otherwise, they're not going to help you out in the next war. If you can go for the forts in Albania as well as the one in Macedonia, that is perfect. We really want to make sure that we keep the Ottomans out of the Balkans. It is easier dealing with a strong Byzantium that has its cores back than dealing with the Ottomans. So if we can give out their lands to our allies, that is not a big deal. If you're lucky enough, the Mamluks are also going to jump in on the bandwagon and attack the Ottomans also. Do try and secure Gelibolu as fast as you can. This way we're going to be able to cut off the Ottomans from their Balkan holdings. When dealing with the Ottomans, the most important thing is to make sure that you're fighting unified with your allies and not disbanded. Otherwise, they're going to be picking you off one by one. And also try and rush for the forts that they have, as taking over the forts as fast as possible means you're going to win the war faster and you're going to get the war score that you need to piece them out. It can happen that the Hungarians around 1455, when they get the event for it, if they didn't go for Janos of Hunyadi, then you're going to have issues because they're going to be in a personal union with the Austrians. This is good because it means we can get an alliance with Austria, and that's going to be way better for us. It also means that we can join the empire much sooner. It would have been a lot easier to give out some lands to the Hungarians, get some favors, and use them to attack the Venetians afterwards. This way we're going to have to get favors with the Austrians to attack the Venetians, or if we're lucky we can just attack together with the Milanese. If you did manage to take Gelibolu instead of the Romans, then you should take back Gelibolu for yourself together with Gumulcine and all of these other parts here. Yes, basically we are backstabbing the Romans. We're not giving them anything. We're taking all of this for ourselves, as well as the gold that the Ottomans have. And we're going to be attacking the Byzantines quite shortly. Having Macedonia means that you can take the Retake Macedonia mission that gives you claims on North Greece and Morea. I also recommend that you disband the fort in Salonik. It is really not necessary. Do keep the fort in Gallipoli. This is really important. Also, after this finishes, if, as I previously mentioned, the Hungarians got into a personal union with the Austrians, which means that they didn't go for the Janos Hunyadi option, then you should be able to ally the Austrians. You also should build a fort in Kostur after you finish making it a core, as Kostur is a mountain area and it basically protects all of Greece, or it prevents all of Greece from exiting from there. Because we didn't give any lands to the Byzantines, they are obviously gonna cancel the alliance with us. That is okay. The truce with the Ottomans should finish in around 15 years from now, so we have enough time to rebuild our nation and get ready for the next war against them. You should also go for the Defender of the Faith if you have the cash for it, and you should if you manage to get it from the Ottomans. And remember, the other money we're going to be using for making Kostur a fort. Don't forget to get a royal marriage with the Austrians so you can get some of those chins in the family. We were quite lucky. One of the other nations that was at war with the Ottomans managed to actually release the Albanians, and we're going to obviously attack them and take over everything from here. Now that we managed to get the province of Vloria, we really just need to get the Venetian holdings by the Adriatic. We also can do the Pacify the Albanians mission, as we need only these 3 provinces here. If it does happen that the Austrians also try and take a few lands from the Ottomans, and they usually do take the Bulgarian lands, that is going to be an issue since it basically blocks off our expansion into the north of the Balkans as well as into the Bulgarian lands. What we can do in this situation is continue to expand into the south, take over all of the Byzantine lands that we can, as well as the Ottoman lands that we have left around here that were not taken by the Austrians, and take over the Venetian lands in the Adriatic, as well as expand into Naples whenever we get a chance to, and into the Anatolian parts. You will eventually have to drop the alliance with the Austrians, as you will have to take over Bulgaria as well as some of the Hungarian lands, but that is going to be in the future once you are strong enough and you've secured the other parts of the Balkans. I also highly recommend that you accept the Greek culture so that you don't have any problems with them. This means you're going to get less unrest with the Greek provinces, and it means that you get 100% of the income and the manpower from these provinces. You could also accept the Bosnians, or you could just culturally convert them. It is completely up to you. To put this into perspective, culturally converting them is probably going to cost you the same amount as accepting them, and it also comes with the benefit of not having Bosnian in your nation, and as such not having to deal with separatists. The ideas that I recommend you go for first will depend on whether you have military, diplomatic, or administrative points lying around. Most likely you will have military ones, so if that is the situation, then you should go for quantity ideas, as it boosts up the amount of troops that you have as well as the manpower, and you you do need this once you're fighting the Ottomans. As your first admin idea, definitely go for economic ideas, as you really need to reduce the yearly inflation caused by the gold mine in Kosovo. As such, we gotta go for the national bank as soon as possible. And as a second admin idea, I highly recommend going for religious, as it gives you the Deus Vult CB, and you are basically the only Orthodox nation in the Balkans after, of course, you eat the Byzantines and eventually the Wallachians. You've got Catholics to the west, you got Muslims to the east, so you're basically in the best spot to use the Deus Vult CB. Also, by mixing in a religious economic with quantity, you get some really great modifiers, namely the policies that give you plus 10 morale of armies, as well as minus 10 dev cost and plus 10 land force limit. Whenever you have enough diplo points and you want to go for a diplomatic idea, I recommend going for diplomatic ideas, as it's going to give you a lot more diplomats and diplomatic relations as well as diplomatic reputation, and you will use this once you're annexing all of the lands in Anatolia as well as the Middle East. The best tactic to deal with these lands is basically to release a vassal and then feed your vassal all of the cores that they have, such as the Serbian vassal and many other vassals you will have in these areas. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as well as leave the bell button on to get notified whenever I release a new guide. I also want to really thank my patrons. Thank you so much, guys, for all the support you've been offering me. If anybody else wants to become a patron, then you can check the link in the description. Until the next one, have a great day, everyone.